Hi, everybody. We are so happy to have you here this evening. Welcome to this month's edition of Luke's Legacy Family Research Rounds. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept, the idea is a part of a larger knowledge mobilization initiative through the Family Engagement in Research course, which is a 10-week course where people with lived experience and researchers can come together and learn about what it means to create effective partnerships. Because when we have an opportunity to work together, you actually create better research or better knowledge because you have people with lived experience injecting that into that information. So we come here today to share with families more knowledge when it comes to the development of science or new concepts, anything surrounding parenting or our kids, things like that. We talk about a variety of different things here. And one of the things that we try to start things off with is that everybody who comes to the room here today, be it if you're a clinician or a parent or a youth or a self-advocate, whatever term you choose to call yourself, you are considered this evening a colleague. And so we try to promote conversations in that context where everybody can be a part of the conversation. So we're going to start off with a brief introduction to what we have this evening. And then I will hand the microphone off to our team this evening to talk about youth engagement in research, as well as ableism in health research. And then we will have a little bit of time for questions afterwards. And then we also have an initiative that we started a few months back, basically, where people, because being in Zoom rooms is not the same as being in person, sometimes they had a bit of energy or things that they wanted to process about what they learned tonight. And they wanted just a chance to socialize and just kind of say a few things out loud and share your thoughts and network a little bit. So we have an optional half hour after the hour after that. That is not recorded, but it's just a time to get to know one another and have a further conversation. So that is another option that it's, as I said, it's optional, but it is just a nice fun time to get to know more people as well too. So I am your host this evening. My name is Rachel Martins, and with me as always is my partner in this work, who is Dr. Kinga Posniak, and we are just so honored to have you here this evening. This event will be recorded tonight and will be a part of our YouTube channel as well too. So you can also share this information and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I will put that information in the chat as well too, so you can hit that subscribe button. I never thought I would be someone saying that in my 40s, but that is just part of the job. But anyways, so why don't we get started? I'm going to hand this off to, I'm assuming, Sam, you're getting things started in terms of introductions. I don't know. I'm just going to hand them, whoever goes first. I'm going to turn my microphone off.
Yes, the
awesome.
metaphor.
Thank you for coming here this evening. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Yeah, no, thank you for that lovely introduction, Ray. So hello, everyone. My name is Samantha. And briefly about me, I'm the student investigator of the Youth Engagement and Research Project. And I'm here this evening with 3 of my co-investigators to present on our project. So Amanda, Danny, and Jess, please feel free to introduce yourself. Amanda, would you want to go first?
So I'm Amanda. I am one of the lived experience co-investigators on the project. Started with it right from the very beginning. I'll pass it on to Jess because she's next in my viewpoint.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Gabors, or Jess. I am one of the co-investigators with lived experience on the YER project. And I also do a fair bit of advocacy work, as we all do, fair bit of advocacy work with CanChild, CPNet, and the Transition Hub.
Hi everyone.
Anyone? I didn't look. No. Do you want hot sausage? I did. I tasted it. It's quite good.
Hi everyone. My name is Dan, and I'm
Oh.
yeah, and so excited to
No. I'm just
Tracy, your phone is sending messages to everybody here.
so sorry. I'm mute now.
Thanks.
it's, so yeah, I'm really excited to be here tonight and present my work with Jeff and Jim have been looking extremely hard over the past few months, and we are excited to share the findings with you also. And thank you for the exciting evening together.
Yeah, thank you so much for introducing Danny and Jess and Amanda. Before we begin, I recognize we're calling from different regions, so I'm just curious, where are you calling from? Feel free to type in the chat your location, and perhaps if you would like, share the research center that you're affiliated with, if applicable. So yeah, so share your location and if applicable, the research center that you're affiliated with, just out of curiosity. Treaty 7 in Calgary. Nice. Got Toronto, Sick Kids. Have more University of Calgary in Calgary, of course.
Quebec City,
Quebec City, yeah.
Montreal, Vancouver.
Vancouver,
Wow. Coast to coast.
Ottawa.
Yeah. Hamilton, Ontario.
Calgary.
Yeah. Scarborough and Toronto. Nice. So as you can see, we have people calling in from everywhere. And so, yeah, so thanks for sharing. And one last thing before I start sharing my screen is if you feel comfortable and are able to, I would love to see all of your faces. It not only helps us read the room, whether to speed up, slow down, but it's always nice to see faces for that human connection. Of course, this is no replacement for in-person, but it is at least better than speaking into a void of black squares. So yeah, if you feel comfortable and if you are able to, feel free to turn on your camera. And
In addition, although we'll have time for questions at the end, if it is more accessible for you to type your questions in the chat so that you don't have to remember them, please feel free. One of us will be tracking the chat and we will get back to the question at the end of the presentation.
yeah, thanks, Amanda. So now let's get started with the presentation slide. And do we see it? Awesome. Yeah, so today we hope to really just impart our collective knowledge on what patient-oriented research looks like beneath the iceberg. Oh. And so we'll briefly touch upon our research, but mainly the focus of this presentation is to focus on our reflections, working as a team, what patient-oriented research means to us, our next steps, as well as the key takeaways that we hope we have for youth, parents, and researchers. So stay tuned. Now, I'll hand over the metaphoric mic to Amanda, who will go over the origin story of the Youth Engagement and Research Project. Our research.
So the background, so just so that everybody is on the same starting point, our definition of patient-oriented research, or POR, as you'll see us mention further throughout the slides, is a continuum of research that engages patients as partners and focuses on patient-identified priorities and improves patient outcomes. So this came about out of a CanChild CPNet advisory committee meeting. I believe we were following up on a discussion around family engagement and research course. And we acknowledged that families had this great training opportunity for POR, but that same opportunity didn't necessarily exist for youth with neurodisabilities such as autism, ADHD, cerebral palsy, as well as other rare disorders. So out of that training opportunity, out of that conversation came this need for, okay, but then what is there training opportunities? So we formed the group that you see on the screen, which consisted of one parent with lived experience, four youth with lived experience, one student investigator, and 5 researchers. So out of those, with the aid of our research team, we came to realize that instead of the original idea of kind of looking at the family engagement and research course and seeing how we could adjust it, we needed to kind of dial it back even further and look at 2 questions. So what are the training needs for youth with neurodisabilities? We specifically focused on the ages of 18 to 25 to enhance their knowledge, confidence, and skills as research partners. And then what are the benefits and challenges of engaging in a patient-oriented research approach?
And so to answer those 2 big questions, our approach really at the foundation was patient-oriented research. So it's kind of meta. We're exploring patient-oriented research by engaging in patient-oriented research. And as Amanda said, we had a very diverse team. Oh, can someone mute? Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, feel free, please mute so that it doesn't disrupt the flow of the presentation. I know Zoom can be tricky, but yeah, thank you so much. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So in terms of how we carried out our approach, we had monthly meetings and we exchanged emails in between those to follow up with action items. In addition to that, we also had individual check-ins with myself and our partners before each phase of the study to really assess, hey, what do you want to take part in? What is the level of engagement that you want to be involved? And the involvement matrix was a very handy tool, I would say, to help with that check-in. So again, it helped us assess what are the tasks and how involved you want to be. And that was a matrix. In addition, we use the public and patient engagement evaluation tool, and that was administered at the end of each study phase to get the qualitative feedback of how was patient-oriented research together. And so with that said, you might be wondering, well, what were the project phases that we carried out? And the first, was we wanted to do a needs assessment, as Amanda said, with youth to understand, what are the current barriers and needs for patient-oriented research. And so we did that with focus groups and interviews. We also, in addition, conducted or hosted a 2-day virtual symposium back in September of 2021. And this was with youth and researchers from various networks to really prioritize those training needs and delivery methods that we wanted to carry out. And so those 2 phases were subjected to qualitative content analysis, which is a fancy way of saying, well, what are the key themes, what are the key points? and from there, those key themes and data that we collected informed the knowledge translation, which is ongoing, right? We developed prototypes and we're still continuing this journey of exploring what else can we do to expand patient-oriented research for youth. Now you might be curious about the results. And so what did we learn? Well, through the 7 interview participants, they expressed various barriers and facilitators indicated by the plus for facilitator and the minus sign for barriers. And you can see there's barriers that are more pertinent to the individual and more barriers related to the environment. I won't read them all, but it's there for you. And a lot of them came at no surprise. So these were the main messages we heard from youth. Now, with those barriers and facilitators in mind, the 17 virtual symposium participants prioritized the following 3 training needs. So number 1, researcher youth communication. Number 2, research roles and responsibilities. And number 3, finding partnership opportunities. As well, we also discussed potential delivery methods, shown here on the right. And there was a strong emphasis on universal design for learning or accessibility, youth representation, so youth being the ones involved at creating those training and delivering the training, as well as co-learning among youth and researchers. So again, that learning together. And so overall, our study revealed the need for training opportunities for both youth and researchers, and also the importance of creating such opportunities with youth for youth. And that is the epitome of nothing about us without us. Now, with that said, what were our experiences along the way? And so this is the part where we will reflect on our team's journey from the preparation to the execution to now the knowledge translation stage of research. I'll first begin by touching upon or by sharing a story related to the preparation for our focus group and interviews. Really quickly, what did that look like? Well, we had our partners and researchers co-design the protocol, the grants that we submitted, the ethics submissions, etc. And that includes shaping the focus group and interview questions. And we also tried a new idea of co-developing recruitment videos. But how did this idea came about? Well, here's the tale of the time we got spammed by 300 bots and experienced extremely slow recruitment. But before I expand, let me know in the chat how many of you guys have experienced such issues in research, bots spamming. Yeah, Peter, I see your hand up. Linda too. Yeah, in slow recruitment, it's almost inevitable, right? But the bright side, I like to see things on the bright side. And I think we often trade adversity for wisdom, right? If we're open to learning and trying something new. And so as a team, we came together, we hopped on an emergency meeting and we're like, how do we address this? How can we address the bot issue, but also B, speed up recruitment because we're on a timeline with funding. And our creative problem solving pointed to the direction of, well, let's create some handy dandy recruitment videos that is accessible, because not only does it have the audio of us talking, but it has the visual component and also the caption, of course, edited correctly. And so we created, so the idea really came out of the discussion with youth partners to identify the need that, hey, maybe the recruitment posters were not accessible. And also the fact that we maybe shouldn't have included the public survey link. And maybe we shouldn't have mentioned the readable, the gift card amount in the readable text, right? So those are the hidden curriculum, if you will, of working together and even at the very early stages of recruitment. And so here, I just want to spend 90 seconds showing you the end result of one of our recruitment videos. Let me just also share audio, make sure it's sharing. And just confirm, can you see my screen still? Awesome. So I'll play the video and yeah. This is our...
What does it mean to be a research partner?
Being part of a team that can help identify that research.
Whether it be fine-tuning the research question, giving your patient perspective, or creating a presentation based on your findings, you will always have an active role in the research process as a research partner.
As opposed to being a research participant where you're just sort of on the one side. The research partner kind of gets to peek behind the curtain, if you will, of the research process and be involved in it from beginning to end, helping to set the research priorities.
There should be a comfortable and welcoming environment where young people can partner with researchers to be involved throughout the research process, starting with the study design to the execution of the study and all the knowledge translation activities.
Do you have ideas for improving the research partner experience for youth? Let's hear them. Participate in a focus group or interview for our youth engagement and research study. We are recruiting youth aged 18 to 25 with neurodevelopmental disabilities, including, but not limited to, CP, ASD, ADD, and ADHD. To sign up or for more information, please contact myself at dongy58@mcmaster.ca. And there you go. That was the end result of experiencing a setback, but it turned out to be a wonderful lesson for accessibility and recruitment. And so, yeah, and I'll pass off the mic now to Jess, who will talk more about the execution phase.
Yes, so when we did successfully recruit some participants, we conducted a handful of focus groups and interviews. And then based on the results of that, we took those transcripts and did a collaborative qualitative data analysis with 2 research and 3 lived experience partners. And that was sort of a new experience for me in that I had to, me and a few of my coworkers, but particularly, or co-investigators, sorry, but particularly me, I had to learn about like the research coding process, looking for themes and things like that. You know, I have a journalism education, so the whole idea of conducting interviews and getting information from people in that way and then sort of looking at it for themes is not necessarily new, but doing it in a scientific format was a new skill for me. And at first it seemed a little overcomplicated, to be honest, but as you can see on our slide here, there was a Linda, who is on this call, bless her, did a little tutorial webinar type video for us to explaining the whole process, walking us through it, and we could watch it on our own time as well as, you know, meet with the group to learn how to use the software and do the coding process. And ultimately we had a tie in our themes, and Amanda had to come in and break that, be the deciding person. So it was a really interesting learning experience, and in some ways I think brought us closer together as a group as we tried to figure out how to do this new to a lot of us, this new skill, but used technology to make it accessible for all of us.
So while we were finishing with the individual interviews and beginning our coding work, we also were prepping for our phase 2, which was a 2-day virtual symposium that was offered actually over 2 weeks. So we didn't have 2 days back to back. Instead, we had one on a weekday, if I'm not mistaken, and then one on a Saturday. The idea was ideally to have the same individuals at both, but we were also open to providing different ways of being able to still contribute information via either RedCap or via in our survey or via email, a central email. So we were involved, and by we, I mean those of us with a lived experience with disability. We were involved from the get-go. We co-designed the protocol, asked for the grants, ethics proposal. We shaped all of the symposium questions. Itinerary was edited by some of us. Myself and Sam actually co-hosted the virtual symposium together. And then myself, Jess, a few others acted as team member facilitation for breakout rooms. We also had people doing note taking. We had people on the backside doing computer assist, so tech assist in case we had problems, because some of us did not know how to use Zoom at this point yet. We have to reiterate that this happened pretty 2021 September, if I have my timeline correctly. So yeah, we COVID had already been there, done that, but it was the fact that we used each other's strengths, I think is the biggest takeaway and story for me, was that we used each other's strengths. So like, for example, I really enjoy presenting. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me to help co-host. Whereas we had others who were really good at note-taking and could just listen and take out those main themes. We were able to we also had others that were able to comb through emails after the event to get out top themes as well. So it was, no one was left out. Everybody had a role to play, whether or not it was directly on that day or heavily directly on that day, there was still a role for everybody. So as we managed to code all of our results, code all of the feedback that we were given, we moved into phase 3, which was and is still current. Phase 3 is our knowledge translation and dissemination. So as I mentioned, this began at the very height of the pandemic. So everything from our recruiting to how we disseminated our information was based off of digital formats. So in terms of conferences and presentations, we have done CPNet Science and Family Day 2021. We did, Natasha and Sam also did the Children's Healthcare Canada conference in November of 2021. And then myself and Sam were also presented at the Child Bright Virtual Symposium on December 9th. We also currently have submitted a manuscript to Research Involvement and Engagement in October in 2022, which we are still patiently waiting for updates in regards to publishing. But what was really interesting is, so as an undergrad, I've read a lot of research papers and had to analyze research papers, but to be on the other side and informing what the manuscript looked like, how our abstract had to read, and being involved in the very lengthy process that is a journal submission, gave me a whole new respect for the research and how it's presented in journals. I have continued as we're presenting here today. It's been a blast being able to not only present our results as we've shared, but we've also shared our challenges and our triumphs. And we will continue to share some of our further triumphs as this presentation continues. So I will now pass the mic to Jess.
So some other reflections that came out of this process, and in some ways still continue to happen, as far as compensation and gratitude, we've had honorariums, gift cards, customized team sweaters that some of us are wearing. We actually do a lot of back and forth to try to make sure that we all have them available and clean to wear at the appropriate times. And our team dynamics and spirit, we are an anti-strictly business group. We all just sort of have become quite comfortable just saying what we think and what needs to be said in whichever way that we need to say it. And depending on the time of day, there might be a lot of digressions, but we always get back to where we need to be. And we've all become quite good friends because of it, and it's in some ways the best part of our weeks. And and through that, we have a mutual respect and compassion for each other and what we're each sort of dealing with in our lives and the kind of accommodations that we need and what we want to accomplish and our strengths throughout all of this, as well as other aspects of our lives. And we want to sort of practice what we preach. So in terms of accommodation and accessibility, Danny can speak to this well, but we are open to any sort of communication accommodation. We are always open to trying new approaches. You can see some screenshots here. Why don't you tell us about some of the ways that we've all accommodated you and vice versa?
y- y- yeah, thank you, Jess, and hi again, everyone. Yeah, it's been really great working with my team. They, I just, alluded to, um, we, we became quite, close, close, I could say, not only, learn how to, accommodate each other, um, um, I'm more using voice message or what have you. So Jack and Amanda and Anna have really accommodated and really glad to say how really work together as a team, and I really um research for getting this kind of ability to learn to not working as a team, not adapt in teams when we can resist and try to accommodate the best you can. So, yeah, that would be my, um,
Sam even recorded herself reading a draft of
Yeah.
our research paper for us all to listen to. There's a screenshot of it there. And well, it's a video. You can see the
Yeah.
paper as she's reading it. And then we sort of all go like Danny and I said, we go off of each other's strengths. So Danny will send a voice memo and Amanda will text me and be like, I'm a little tapped out right now, like this evening, to listen to a voice message and like really understand it. So like, could you listen to it and text me the notes?
Yeah, can you
So then
summarize, because it's valuable, but my own needs are not compatible.
Yes,
Uh,
it's disability.
So I think the fact that we lived what we learned. We took everything that was said by youth and implemented it, and continue to implement it.
Yeah, and I might add that I found some of the documents not really accessible, so I will say scan or 15, can you do this? And they were willing to accommodate me. So I was really grateful for that. And as I said before, but it was repeating, that is where research should be. Placing your teams, placing you get along much better. Yeah. Um,
And so moving now to the next steps, family engagement and research course and knowledge translation.
So our next step is ongoing assessment of the family engagement and research course. So we have just finished the FER course with continued assessment in terms of universal design for learning, accessibility, as well as very large potential for youth engagement and research course adaptation. That's in the works, potential given funding. And then our second part is more knowledge translation and dissemination. So not only are we here at Luke's Legacy, but we are actually going to be presenting at our very first in-person conference at the EKO Spring Symposium in exactly 2 weeks from today. Myself, Sam, and Jess will be at that presenting on this research. So that brings us to, so what? Why are we talking to everybody here? What was the point of our research? A point was, and a lot of you have put in comments of how awesome this sounds, how awesome this research sounds. So now we want to give you those key takeaways that youth, parents, and researchers can all learn from and take away from this presentation. So for youth, first and foremost, I think, as I said, we started this at the height of the pandemic. I had just graduated from my undergrad in university, and I think a lot of people can attest that graduating from university and being shoved into the work world is kind of daunting and overwhelming. But I don't think as many people can say how much more overwhelming it is when you graduate during a pandemic and everything that you had potentially planned for disappears. So being able to be involved in this solidified just how much lived experience is valuable and important. Disability is a part of who you are, and your experience of disability is different than what clinicians have been taught. It's different from what your parents know. It's different from each and every one of us. So being involved in research allows you to use your lived experience, which is valuable and important. It's also, as we've demonstrated, extremely important to understand your own strengths and limitations, to be willing to speak up when you need, and also to continue to advocate for your accommodations. By knowing your strengths and limitations, you know what accommodations you may need or may not need. You're going to know maybe what roles you really want to take after. You might know kind of where you want to really focus on. Do you want to be in the background, maybe helping with editing a video together, or maybe your strength is in editing? It's knowing what those strengths are and using them to yours and your group's advantage. As mentioned, continue to advocate for your accommodations. As we've stated, like we recorded, bless Sam, like she recorded an entire transcript, an entire research article for Danny and for the rest of us, so that we had a different method of understanding. It's being advocating that you need you need any communication in audio, or maybe you need communication in text, you're going to need constant reminders. Part of pushing back on that ableism in research is standing up and speaking up about those accommodations, and that those accommodations don't necessarily make you lesser, but can actually make the entire research team and the research process stronger, because you're able to evaluate and participate and be able to provide your own outlook on research.
And I will speak for how engagement in research, like how parents can help get their children involved. But also, I just want to speak briefly to a point Amanda just made about setting reminders and things like that. Sam was our fearless leader and expert note taker at everything that we had to say, and she would set the reminders for when we thought we would need them right then and there, so that it didn't feel like a lot of extra work or a nuisance for her, but we would get our notifications right around the time that we individually needed them, because we got to know each other, and took into consideration deadlines and things like that. So technology can be your best friend in terms of accommodation. Yes, shout out to Notion for sure. And life-changing. So for parents, show your child that engagement is possible with or without accommodations. If conventional research works for you, conventional research methods and structure works for you, and you don't require any additional accommodations, that is great. But lead by example. Show your kids what's possible, and that being involved makes a difference. Obviously age appropriateness is a thing. I can feel parents maybe coming back to me with that, but share decision making with your child. What would benefit them to know? What do they want to do? What do they want to do once they get into a research engagement position? What kind of research engagement, which stage it would be most interesting to them, even if you're advocating on their behalf? Still include them in that process.
Even being involved in an IEP meeting and being there to discuss what their accommodations look like, what accommodations they need, helps to teach them to have some of that shared decision making and knowing of their accommodations, which goes back to our previous slide.
Definitely, it's teaching advocacy and how it can be applied in a research setting, in an educational setting, even when they get older and go into the workforce. A lot of the accommodations you need during this type of thing, during research activities, is also very similar to what you would need in school or in the workplace. So it's just an opportunity to grow and learn. And with that, support your child to discover the research roles and skills that they have, that they want to acquire. Help them, teach them to be involved in research and the value of that, nothing about us without us. And, teaching them as they grow also prepares them, as we've said, for life of advocacy, whether it be related to research or any aspect of their life as they get older.
Now I'll chime in from the researchers' end. I have a couple of recommendations, and number one, of course, being open and flexible, especially with accommodations. And I think many of the examples that we touched upon today are tangible illustrations of, being open to explore and try something new, and by Alexa, and disrupt the status quo. Number two, in a similar vein, accessibility, and that's considering multiple methods to learn and engage and communicate. And again, the example of, using voice messages, using a group chat as opposed to just email messages, that helped a lot when it comes to communication alone. And that's just a small thing, right? So accessibility doesn't have to be this grand, huge change in our approach, but just small things that make our lives easier. And to do all of these, of course, it's needless to say, you need to dedicate resource and time to build and sustain, this team and to build that report. And so, yeah, it's certainly not, I suppose, easy in the sense that not everyone has time, but when it comes to, but with more funding and with more, man resources, if you will, or resources, it is possible and it is feasible. And the last point I have here is, well, hire people with lived experience and promote awareness. That goes to show, right? And there, because certainly there's a lot of value in bringing lived experiences onto the table.
I will also add something to remind Danny of, so as we stated, we were not only completing the FER course, but we were assessing it for accessibility and how well we could maybe adapt it for a youth program. And we met not only to do FER work, but we also met to assess. And I still remember Danny saying to us every Friday on a Friday, because we met every Friday, that it was the best. Correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, but it was the best way to end a week because we always knew that we would have some laughs and some work. And I think that goes to show that we really did put in the work to know each other.
Yeah, and to get all that that will not go here, but I think we knew of each other before, of course, because we worked together for a long time, but I think between this project and making a soft together, I think it brought us closer as not only colleagues but as friends. So I really enjoyed our working together. We met it all over and someone the time you know or important and so yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. I really love the part you said. We were not just colleagues, but friends. And I really resonate with that. And similarly too, let me just speed through this. An example I want to share, and it's related to all these points, is, building that rapport or cohesion was also require some intentional, I guess, be intentional when even facilitating the team meetings. Like, for example, before the first 5-10 minutes, we just spent getting to know each other. I often started the call with a jam board with like rating our moods, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? Or I asked a question.
What animal do you want to be and why?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like of that nature. And one of my favorite questions to ask was, what is your internal weather forecast? And that usually gets the ball going, and we start sharing about our weeks, our months, our days. And it was a nice way to build that connection. So that's one thing, a tangible thing that I really enjoyed, and I think people appreciated. And really to, I guess, summarize here, a lot of, and throughout, the whole process of engagement, I think everyone, wants to be, it's important to be open to new viewpoints and see potential in everyone. And from even engaging, it's important to also share your personal experiences and reflections about patient-oriented research, which is what we're doing right now, and to really promote this idea and to help the uptake of and have more patient-oriented research being in practice, or being a standard, if you will. And Amanda, I want you to finish off with the last.
So be open to new viewpoints. Not everything has to necessarily come from a healthcare lens. It can come from a sociology lens. It can come from a political science lens. It can come from just lived experience lens. Different viewpoints opens up research in ways that I don't think we can truly put into words. See potential in everyone. And this kind of also goes with striving for more accessible and equitable research. See who is missing out in your research, who isn't represented on a team. Does that mean someone who's non-speaking uses augmentative communication? Is it someone who is visually impaired? The more accessible you are in your research, in how you disseminate your results, the more equitable research will become. Lead by example, and others will follow. And again, we'll say it again, nothing about us without us. So let us help you make research accessible. And with that, on behalf of our entire team, we thank you for being here and listening to us. If there's for more information about our project, please scan this QR code. We are utilizing a QR code instead of a big long email because, believe it or not, QR codes are actually more accessible than a big long link. And with that, I have answered a few questions in the comments as they've come up, because that was my way of staying focused on the presentation. But if there are any other questions out, and Sam has just posted the actual full link in the comments. I didn't know if we had that on hand. Of course we did, because Sam's prepared for anything. So if there's any questions, either ask via video, or if you're more comfortable, feel free to ask in comments and we will bring it up. I do want to go to Diana Russell's comment of, are Danny, Amanda, Jessica interested in pursuing research careers beyond this project? If not, they should. Yeah, hi, you can hire me. Happily will. I have come to realize that through this study that I actually have a very, very, very large love and enjoyment for research. And I believe that part of dismantling the ableism in academia is hiring people who don't necessarily have PhDs or masters as research assistants, as research partners, because masters and PhDs aren't always accessible or affordable for those of us with disabilities, let alone those without.
Thanks so much, team. This was wonderful. And now I think this is a really great moment to applaud accessibly. I'm going to do it in ASL, but please use your applause worthy of choice. Love that.